The following podcast is made up of various scraps of recycled audio recorded randomly over the last 20 years. Nothing within this episode should be considered current or up to date. Listener discretion is advised.
Everyone stop what you're doing and only pay attention to me.
Will you say something, Steven? Steeven Orr Else Media.
What do you think you're doing? Twisted Sister! What kind of a man desecrates a defenseless textbook? I've got a good mind to slap your fat face. You are destroying your life with that garbage. All right, Mr. Sister, I want you to tell me, no, better yet, stand up and tell the class, what do you want to do with your life?
From a secret location deep within the hills of eastern Kansas, one man, armed only with a microphone, his voice, and an unnatural gift for hyperbole, brings you the most important podcast in all of human history. It's time to escape from the mundane, ladies and gentlemen. This is Steeven Orr Else. In May of 1984, comic fans gathered at a modest convention in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where a peculiar, self-published comic book made its quiet debut. It was an oversized, magazine-style black and white comic printed on simple, but more importantly, cheap newsprint, with a limited run of just 3,275 copies. Its cover showed four mysterious masked turtles wielding weapons, poised for battle against a dark cityscape. The title, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The comic's release marked the humble beginning of what would become a pop culture juggernaut, one of the most unexpected success stories in the history of comics. The creators, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, had no idea they were about to spark a phenomenon. At the time, they were just two struggling artists trying to break into the industry, barely scraping by as they worked on freelance projects. The Turtles concept had started as a joke during a brainstorming session. In a moment of playful sketching, Eastman drew a turtle with a mask and nunchucks, labeling it a Ninja Turtle. And from that one doodle, a bizarre and bold idea began to form. They added in science fiction, martial arts, and plenty of irreverent humor, creating a story that was equal parts parody and action-packed homage to the gritty, noir-inspired comics of the era. To fund this experiment, Eastman and Laird pooled together all they had, a small tax refund and a loan from Eastman's uncle to cover the printing costs. For an unknown comic, a print run of 3,275 was considered pretty ambitious. Still, the creators didn't expect much beyond selling a few hundred copies, hopefully enough to cover the expenses. Yet what they unleashed was a story that tapped into something far bigger. The concept was so offbeat, so wildly different from anything else on the stands, that readers were immediately drawn to it. The Turtles weren't your typical superheroes. They were mutants, misfits raised in the sewers by a wise old rat named Splinter, trained in the art of ninjutsu to fight crime in the shadows. These were characters born out of a gritty world, but driven by a sense of humor and adventure that was infectious. The comic's popularity exploded through word of mouth, catching the attention of comic shop owners, fans, and eventually major toy and media companies. The Turtles went from black and white pages to the neon glow of Saturday morning cartoons, becoming household names by the late 80s. A franchise was born, branching into an animated series, action figures, video games, and ultimately a Hollywood film in 1990. But all of that massive success can be traced back to that one single issue, an unlikely origin for heroes who would go on to define a generation. Now, I was aware of the Turtles comic roots back in the late 80s. I'd even read a few issues here and there, especially Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the anthology series that launched in 1987 to expand on the characters and the world that Eastman and Laird had created. But my familiarity back then was mostly with the franchise as it existed in pop culture. The cartoon series, the toys, and of course the live-action movie that hit the silver screens in 1990. I mean, the Turtles were everywhere, from lunchboxes to video games, and they became a cornerstone of childhood for anyone growing up in that era. Yet, despite all this, I had never read the original issue until now. For years, that first story was like a mythical artifact, one I'd heard of, but never experienced firsthand. So, finally holding Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 and reading it with fresh eyes, I felt like I was glimpsing into the heart of what started it all. And as I read, I could see the blend of ambition, raw creativity, and sheer fun that Eastman and Laird had poured into those pages. So here we are, 40 years later, and I'm going back to where it all began. How does that first story hold up? Was the magic of the Turtles there from the start, or is it something that grew with the franchise? Well, I don't know. I can't get that deep into it in my head. But let's find out what we find out this week as we dive into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 by Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman.
You've heard they exist, but you never believed they were real, because you never actually seen them. Until now.
Just what is going on out there, April?
They're mean.
Hey, what are you, some sort of punker? God, I hate punkers. Especially bald ones with green makeup.
They're green.
What the heck was that?
Looked like sort of a big turtle in a trench coat.
And they're on the screen.
God, I love being a turtle!
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Prepare to be shell-shocked.
The issue opens with the Turtles fighting a group of generic street toughs known as the Purple Dragon Gang. There's just 2 panels on page 1, but by the end of it, we already know the names of each turtle and what weapons they use. And that's incredibly important because it's really the only way to tell each of the turtles apart. In the cartoons, they gave them each different colored masks, which, helped to tell them apart. Well, that and their belts, which had the first letter of their name on each. But in the black and white comic, if you're just looking at an image of one or more of them, you had to go by their weapon to know which turtle was which, because without those weapons, they are, all 4 of them, identical. Now, if you're not aware, if you have no idea what the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are, these are anthropomorphic turtles. They walk, they talk, they're mutants, they're teenagers, and yes, they are ninjas. We got Leonardo, he's the leader, and he uses twin katanas. Donatello has a bow staff, Michelangelo carries a pair of nunchucks, and Raphael uses twin sais. Anyway, back to the story. By the end of page 7, the fight is over. Blood has been shed, and the Turtles, who have won the battle, flee into the night as the cops arrive. This is their first major skirmish, the first time that the Turtles have been out on their own, kicking some butt. But now, they gotta get home because, they're teenagers, right? So the 4 Turtles, they escape into the storm drains, and they descend into the sewers beneath the city where they have made their home. It's here that we meet Splinter, their sensei and their father. Oh yeah, he's also an anthropomorphic rat. The tussle with the purple dragons marks the end of their education into the art of fighting. And it's now that Splinter tells them of their true mission and the reason that they have been training for the past 13 years. The tale that their sensei unfolds begins over 20 years ago. Back then, Splinter was just a regular rat. He was a pet owned by a ninja of the Foot Clan named Hamato Yoshi. They were back in Japan where Splinter, who was kept in a cage, would watch his master train in the martial arts. Eventually, as rats are known to do, Splinter began to mimic his master's movements, and soon he too was a master of ninjutsu. There was another member of the Foot Clan, Oroku Nagi, who comes into the story because both Splinter's master and Oroku Nagi, well, they loved the same woman, Tang Shen. But Shen only had eyes for Yoshi. This, of course, angers Oroku Nagi, and one day he comes upon the woman in her home and he begins to beat her. Yoshi walks in as it's happening and he intervenes, opening up such an immense can of whoop-ass on Oroku Nagi that by the time it's over, Nagi is dead. Well, here's the thing. As justified as Hamato Yoshi may have been by killing Oroku Nagi, murdering a member of your clan was a big no-no. It just wasn't allowed. And so, putting himself into some serious hot water over the act, Yoshi grabs up Splinter, and along with Tang Shen, the three flee to America, to New York City, to be exact. The problem here is that Oroku Nagi had himself a little brother, Oroku Saki, who wasn't happy about his big brother being beaten to death. And so, with revenge simmering across his every molecule, Oroku Sagi gets himself all trained up, gets himself promoted to lead his own clan of foot soldiers, and then, coincidentally enough, he's asked to head up their branch in New York. Oroku Saki takes this as an opportunity to find Hamato Yoshi and Tang Shen, which he does, and then subsequently kills them both. This was 15 years ago, and by this point, Oroku Saki is calling himself the Shredder. Splinter, of course, saw the whole thing. But despite all his rage, he was still just a rat in a cage, and so he could do nothing to save his master. He did, however, manage to escape. He lived on the streets, as rats are known to do, and one day he witnesses a young hero save a blind man from being hit by a truck. But as the truck screeches to a halt, a strange canister flies from the truck and it strikes the young man in the head. Bam! Fun fact, by the way, much of what became Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it was based on, or I guess it was a parody of Daredevil from Marvel Comics. The young boy here in this first issue who saves the blind man but is then struck by a strange canister that flies out of the back of the careening truck, well, that's meant to be Matt Murdock. And the canister, that's the canister that's got the radioactive material in it that turns Murdock blind, but gives him radar powers that he uses as Daredevil to battle evil. Like the clan of ninjas known as the Hand. Also, in Daredevil, he's trained in the martial arts by a blind sensei called Stick. The Hand and Stick in Daredevil become the Foot and Splinter in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Anyway, the strange canister, after cracking the young boy in the head, then bounces several more times before striking and breaking a glass jar that the boy was holding. And in the jar were 4 tiny turtles. The canister and the turtles then fall into a storm drain. The turtles survive, but the canister has cracked open and a strange, glowing green ooze rolls out of it, bathing the turtles. Seeing all this happen, Splinter goes down into the storm drain and begins gathering up the turtles for reasons he doesn't even know. For him, it was instinctual. He places the turtles in a coffee can and he takes them home. Eventually, the ooze mutates the turtles and Splinter so that they're all anthropomorphic. And the rat takes the opportunity to, train the turtles to be ninjas in order to exact his revenge upon the Shredder. And so, yeah, that's Splinter's story. That's the origins. And with the story told, the turtles go after the Shredder. And after a truly epic fight, well, they kill him. But here's the thing. He only falls to his apparent death. And by that, I mean that he falls from off the top of a building. He's got a grenade in his hand because at one point during the fight, he realizes that he might lose. And he figures, well, if I'm going to die, I'm going to take these freaking turtles with me. And so he was going to blow himself up along with the turtles. The turtles, however, manage to knock old Shredder off of the building. And as he falls, he explodes. And that seems pretty final. But, well, this is comics. And we all know the rule. There ain't no death if you don't see a body. And, well, considering that we don't see a body, yeah, you never know. I mean, we do know, at least by this point, but back then, reading this issue without anything that's come since, folks just didn't know. But yeah, that was the very first issue of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I liked it, I guess. I mean, I liked it well enough. It was 40 pages long. I really enjoyed the art and the story, especially the origin in the middle. It did have a tendency to drag now and again, but, you know, in the end, I did have a lot of fun with it. Enough fun that I may continue on with the other issues because, again, I've never read the original issues. If you've not read TMNT before, by the way, that's what us insiders, that's what we call Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We call it TMNT. But if you've never read it before, I would feel pretty good about recommending it to you, especially if all you know about the property is the old cartoon or the old movies or even the new movies, which, you know, had their moments but weren't really all that great. Now, full disclosure, I am reading this through Comixology Unlimited. This is the IDW collection, as they own the property now, or at least they're publishing the property now. But the collection is called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Black and White Classics Volume 1, and it collects issues 1 through 3, as well as the one-shot Raphael book. I've only read the one issue so far. I haven't gone any further into it at this point, but I think I'm gonna. Probably. I mean, I got a lot of stuff going on, but for now, it's there. It's in my digital stack to read. I just got to find me the time and the gumption to do so. Until then, folks, what about you? Were you into the TMNT even a little? If so, who's your favorite turtle? Shoot me an email, stevenorelse@gmail.com, and let me know. That address, by the way, will be in the show notes. But my favorite turtle, well, that's always been and will forever be Michelangelo. But I do often lean towards Raphael now and again. Steeven Orr Else will return after these messages. For some folks, a clamp is a tool, but for others, it's an art form. In a world of fleeting connections, there are only a few bonds that endure. Clamps for Life is more than a service. It's a promise, a mark of quality forged by artisans with the finest steel, crafted for those who value the precision of a perfect hold. Imagine a clamp forged in the old world traditions, its polished steel glinting under a low evening light. This is no ordinary tool. This is a testament to a life lived elegantly, where every detail, every connection is bound with intention. You know the feeling, the quiet assurance of a frame held flawlessly, a bond unbreakable. Whether securing the golden seams of a Baroque mirror, stabilizing the oak beams of a coastal retreat in the south of France, or gently holding your most precious works of art, this is the world of Clamps for Life. Every month, Clamps for Life delivers only the finest hand-selected clamps to your door, chosen specifically for your needs. Clamps that speak of sophistication, craftsmanship, and permanence. Designed for those who believe that even a clamp should embody the spirit of beauty, precision, and integrity. With your first delivery, you'll receive an exclusive custom-milled miter clamp, not merely functional, but designed to elevate your surroundings. Because Clamps for Life is for those that believe stability is the ultimate luxury. Join us. Join the select few who understand that elegance is found in what we hold close and in what holds us together. Clamps for Life, for those who demand nothing less than perfection. And now, back to Steeven Orr Else. Young Maxwell Malone, with his brand new trombone, was on his way home. He was walking alone, when suddenly ahead on the path in his way stood a little green man in a bright pink beret. The little green man wore little green pants, and as Maxwell approached, the man started to dance. The shirt the man wore was black as a crow, but as the man danced, the shirt started to glow. The glow, it increased. It grew like a weed. Young Maxwell Malone was frightened indeed. But he took his trombone and he cleared out his throat. Then he threw his head back and he blew out a note. Such a sonorous tone, so clear and so true, that the little green man wasn't sure what to do. So he just kept on dancing, and he started to spin, and out from the shirt stepped his identical twin. Now there were two, and they danced as if one. But Maxwell Malone wasn't nearly quite done. Max played and he wailed and he rocked and he rolled. With each note he blew, he grew more and more bold. But the little green men in the little green pants ignored the trombone and continued to dance. Soon there were 4, then 8, then 16. An army of men all tiny and green. Young Maxwell Malone remained resolute as his brand new trombone continued to toot. 32, 64, now 128. The green men produced at a neck-breaking rate. Max played jazz, then classical, then swing, both country and western, which wasn't his thing. He spun through the genres, but nothing would work. Max threw down the horn. He felt like a jerk. The little green men were now 256. They made a river of green with the black and pink mix. Max backed away, leaving his horn. Should he fight? Should he run? Young Maxwell felt torn. Then the little green men in the little green pants fell into a stillness as they finished their dance. "Why did you stop?" they asked in one voice. "Your tunes were the bomb. They were really quite choice." "You're blocking my path. I just want to go home," said Maxwell Malone as he retrieved his trombone. "We just want to dance," said the little green men. "Would you please just play us a song once again?" "If I do," said Max, "can I be on my way?" "Oh yes," they all said, "as long as you play." And so Maxwell played, and note after note, the green men all danced to the song that he wrote. But as the men danced, half began to deflate. The 256 were now 128. Then 64, 32, now 16. They danced and they vanished, these men who were green. 16 became 8, then 8 became 4. And soon there were 2 and not a man more. By the time Max had finished, all that stood in his way was a little green man with a bright pink beret. The little green man in his little green pants gave Maxwell a bow and said thanks for the dance. Then the man vanished, leaving Max all alone. Young Maxwell Malone and his brand new trombone. Thank you. Rabbits eat their own poop. All right, that's not entirely true. In fact, if this was an article online, I would consider that headline a bit of clickbait. However, rabbits do engage in a unique behavior related to their digestion, though it's not entirely accurate to say that they eat their own poop. What rabbits actually do is engage in a process called coprophagy, which involves consuming a particular type of poop called cetotropes. Now, cetotropes are not the same as the regular droppings one might find in a rabbit's enclosure or in the wild. These special droppings are produced by the rabbit's cecum, a specialized part of their digestive system. Inside the cecum, beneficial bacteria break down fibrous plant material and produce cecotropes, which are soft, nutrient-rich pellets. These are quite different in appearance and texture compared to the harder, dry droppings we normally associate with rabbits. Cecotropes contain essential nutrients, including vitamins, minerals, proteins, and beneficial bacteria. So, rather than eating their own feces, rabbits engage in a fascinating behavior where they directly consume these cetotropes as they are excreted. The cetotropes pass through the digestive tract a second time, allowing the rabbit's body to extract and absorb valuable nutrients that may have been missed during the initial digestion process. Once the rabbit consumes the cetotropes, they are reprocessed in the digestive system, and the rabbit derives optimal nutrition from them. It's a natural mechanism that enables rabbits to maximize nutrient absorption and make the most out of their diet, which is all plants. This unique digestive adaptation allows rabbits to thrive on a high-fiber diet, which consists mainly of grasses, hay, and leafy greens. The ability to efficiently extract nutrients from plant material, including those found in cetotropes, is crucial for their overall health and well-being. To be clear, rabbits do not consume their regular dry droppings or feces that are typically found in their environment. Those droppings are waste products that have already been processed and do not serve a nutritional purpose upon re-ingestion. The behavior of consuming cetotropes is a normal and essential part of a rabbit's diet. It is not a sign of illness or distress. However, it's worth mentioning that providing rabbits with a well-balanced diet that includes high-quality hay, fresh vegetables, and appropriate pellet feed helps support their digestive health and reduces the likelihood of any issues. So yeah, while rabbits do engage in the practice of eating specific soft droppings called cetotropes, they do not, in fact, eat their own poop. At least not their regular poop.
Okay, so the last thing I've got for you is a talk about an issue of Iron Man. This is issue number 225 from Marvel Comics. It's got a cover date of December 1987. It's written by Dave. You know what? I always get this guy's last name wrong, so I'm going to give you the two ways I say it, and maybe someday somebody will tell me the proper way. But it's written by David Michelinie or David Michelinie, as well as Bob Layton. The pencils are by Mark Bright. The inks are by Bob Layton. Colors are by Bob Sharen. Letters by Janice Chiang. And the editor is Mark Grunwald. So the issue itself, we open up with Iron Man. He's in the sky and there's missiles coming at him. Now, this is the Iron Man in his red and silver armor. I'm a big fan of his red and silver armor. I prefer the red and gold, which would be the armor he had just prior to the red and silver. But I do like the red and silver. I love it. I like it more than what he's got on now. I'll tell you that. I don't care how much more technologically advanced his armor might be these days. I like the old style better. So we got Iron Man. He's up in the sky and there's missiles coming at him. He ducks and he dodges and he jukes and he jives. And the missiles collide with each other and explodes. It all seems pretty intense, but then we learn that we, the reader, are just being duped. We're being tricked. We're being played by fools. Played by fools? No, played like fools. That's how we're being played, like fools, people. Fools! Because he's not actually being attacked. He's participating in a joint training session with the U.S. military. After that little fun bit of excitement, Tony is back at Stark Enterprises and he's inspecting armor that belonged to a character by the name of Force. I should say at this point that I do remember reading this issue back in the day when it came out. I should have mentioned at the beginning, this is the first issue of a run that's known as the Armor Wars, even though I think the title to the issue maybe is the Stark Wars. But I don't remember who Force is, and frankly, I didn't do a lot of research to find out who Force is. But apparently, based on the issue, Force was a bad guy who wore armor. Tony defeated him, but now the guy is trying to be a good guy, and he and Tony are friends. But as Tony's inspecting his armor, he finds that the armor is based in part on his own technology, and he kind of deduces based on, it's not the technology he's currently using in his current armor, but it's older technology. So it's something that he deduces must have been stolen from him before he upgraded to his current armor. And he finds this a bit alarming because he ultimately what that means is that this technology that he has designed that he uses for Iron Man has been used by this guy Force to kill, because as a bad guy he has killed and Tony feels responsible for that. And at one point he asks the guy where he got the armor, I believe, and I think the guy said he got it from Justin Hammer, who's a rival of Tony's. And so Tony is now under the belief that Justin Hammer stole his technology and is selling it to criminals to hurt people. So his technology is being used to hurt people, and he's not that happy about it. So he enlists the help of a guy that works for him that's good with computers, and to basically break in to Justin Hammer's computers and steal this information. He needs to find out when Justin Hammer stole this technology, and if Hammer knows that Tony is Iron Man. That's also part of what he's looking for. So the guy that works for him, he says, I'm going to need another guy, and he's going to have to be really good at computers. He's going to have to be a computer dude. And so Tony enlists the help of Scott Lang. Scott Lang is Ant-Man, and as Ant-Man, he breaks into Justin Hammer's headquarters and actually goes into the computer as Ant-Man. They don't make it clear if Tony knows that Scott Lang is Ant-Man, so I don't know that Tony knows that at this point. All he knows is that Scott Lang and the dude that he has working for him is helping him get this information. And so they get these files stolen, and it reveals that the tech was actually stolen by Spy Master for Justin Hammer. And then he sold this tech to various criminals, and he compiles a list of who has his tech, and it's got folks on it like the Beetle, Stiltman, the Mauler, and Crimson Dynamo. So of course he's not happy about this. He feels it's troubling him. He loses sleep over it, and he enlists his lawyers to try to handle this legally. He doesn't get a lot of reception from that. They make their first pass in the legal department to see what they can do, and it doesn't look promising. So Tony goes out, and he's going to try to put a stop to this. He's going to see what he can do as Iron Man. And the first person he goes after is Stiltman. And of course, he defeats him easily. Stiltman is doing what Stiltman does, which is breaking into an apartment or an office or something that's like 20 stories up, and he's doing it with his big, mighty stilts. And Iron Man does what any smart person going up against Stiltman would do, and that's knock his stilts out from under him. And he actually rips one of the stilts off. But Stiltman is able to eject his stilts and fly away. But of course, he's no match for Iron Man. Tony catches him, and he slaps this thing on him called a negator pack, which it goes in, seeks out Tony's tech, and destroys it. Next up, he goes after the Controller. The Controller, I don't know a lot about him, but apparently he uses technology to control people. He takes them over, he enslaves their mind and makes them his zombie army. And the Controller is actually he set up shop in a tanning salon, and he's using the tanning beds to take control of these people. So they are in California. Tony's his Stark Enterprises at this point, his headquarters is located in California. And apparently a lot of people in California like to use tanning beds rather than the sun, I guess. I don't know. But he's got a lot of people now under his control. And Tony has to go through them to get to the Controller. And at this point, Tony's pretty angry. He finally gets a hold of the Controller, and he beats him into unconsciousness. He beats him to the point that he actually, at one point, he's like, he's not sure if the Controller actually survived. So he beats him into unconsciousness, slaps this negator pack onto him. He doesn't know what it's going to do because the Controller doesn't wear a suit of armor like the Stiltman does, or others like Crimson Dynamo or the Beetle. It's just part of his suit. The tech is part of his suit, so he doesn't know if the negator pack will work, if B, if it does work, if all these people that are under his control will snap out of it, if C, if they survive, and D, if the Controller himself will survive. Of course, it all works out. He slaps it on, it destroys the tech, the people snap out of their hypnosis-like state, and the Controller lives, which Stark doesn't seem all that happy about. And then at the end, he finds out that there's nothing near the end of the issue. He goes back to his team of lawyers, only to find out that there's nothing that the law or the government can do for him. So the final panel is Tony sitting at his desk, and he's thinking to himself, it's a tough decision, perhaps the toughest in my life, but with the government support or its hindrance, by the law or against it, I'm going to get back what's mine, and heaven help anyone who gets in my way. And the next issue is The Quest Begins. So I'm going to be revisiting this. I'm going to be talking about future issues on future episodes. I don't know quite sure how I'm going to do that yet, because here's what I'm doing, folks. As you know, or may not know, I record these episodes in my car, and I only get these books for 21 days. So I'm going to read them up. I'm going to come out to my car every now and again and record these little segments talking about the issues. And then I'm going to put them in whatever episodes I want to put them in. But I've also got a big stack of trades at home that I want to read. Next episode, we'll probably not have Iron Man. Maybe I'll talk about Sweet Tooth, because I started reading that just the other day. I've also got the second volume of the Frank Miller Daredevil that I'm reading. I finished the first issue of that, which was pretty decent. There are a lot of other stuff that I want to talk about. I still need to talk about Daredevil Season 3. Haven't talked about Daredevil Season 3 yet, and I want to do that because I have watched it, and it was awesome.
I learn something new every day. For example, did you know that the alligator snapping turtle lures in their prey with their tongue? It's true. In fact, these turtles have one of the most interesting hunting techniques of any animal. And that's just the beginning. Turns out, there are all kinds of incredible facts about turtles that I've picked up along the way while researching the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for this very podcast. So, yeah, let's talk turtles. The alligator snapping turtle is the largest freshwater turtle in North America, and it's a truly formidable creature. They can grow up to 2.5 feet in length and can weigh as much as 200 pounds. Picture a turtle almost as long as your coffee table, with powerful jaws, a hooked beak that looks like something straight out of a dinosaur movie, and claws that could do some serious damage. Its tail is muscular and long, adding to its almost prehistoric appearance. And they're mostly carnivores, meaning that they've got a pretty adventurous palate. They'll go for fish, frogs, snakes, worms, clams, crayfish, and yes, even other turtles if the opportunity presents itself. But what really sets the alligator snapping turtle apart is its incredible hunting trick. The turtle has a unique adaptation that allows it to fish for food. Its tongue has a small, worm-like appendage, and when the turtle sits still at the bottom of a pond or river, it'll wiggle this tongue around to mimic a worm. Fish, thinking they're about to get a tasty snack, swim right up to the turtle's mouth. And that's when the turtle's jaws snap shut with incredible force. One bite, and that fish is done for. According to the St. Louis Zoo, this tongue-luring technique is one of nature's cleverest traps. But here's the thing. Alligator snapping turtles aren't the only ones with interesting features.
Steeven Orr Else will return after these messages. Hey there, comic fans and children of the 80s. My name is Steeven, and I would like to invite you to join me on another G.I. Joe podcast. If you grew up yelling, "Yo, Joe!" or flipping through dog-eared issues of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, this is the show for you. Each episode, we're tackling one issue of the classic Marvel comic series, starting all the way back in 1982. We'll break down the stories, the artwork, the characters, the wild twists, the covert missions, everything that made this series one of the most surprisingly rich comic runs of the decade. We'll follow the rise of Snake Eyes, the schemes of Cobra Commander, the battles, the vehicles, the ninjas, the chaos, and the totally over-the-top, totally awesome storytelling that defined 80s action. Whether you're reliving your childhood or discovering these comics for the first time, I'm here to guide you through it all with excitement, insight, and plenty of nostalgia. So grab your gear and join the team, because the mission begins now. Yo, Joe!
A long time ago, in a comic book rack far, far away. During the years between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, Marvel Comics kept the Star Wars magic alive, delivering bold new stories, expanding the mythology, and taking our favorite heroes and villains on unforgettable adventures. Now join me, the irredeemable Shag, and an ever-changing roster of guest hosts as we journey back to this incredible era. We begin with a comic adaptation of The Empire Strikes Back and continue through the thrilling tales leading up to Return of the Jedi. If you're a seasoned Star Wars veteran who knows your Shira Bree from your Hoojibs, or a brave explorer venturing into these comics for the first time, this is your hyperspace lane to classic Star Wars adventure. Join us for Marvel Star Wars, From Empire to Jedi, every other month on the Fire and Water Podcast Network. Beginning in June 2025.
Come take a listen to Campus Comics Cast. Releasing twice a month, Mike, Scott, and Shad get together to talk about anything and everything in the comic book industry. They'll browse the latest previews in Lunar Next Phase catalogs to highlight the upcoming comics that excite them the most, and they'll even review a few comics. On top of that, you'll get show segments like The First Five, where they discuss the first 5 appearances of a character or event. And then, of course, is the CLZ Shake, in which one or more of the hosts will shake the CLZ app on their phone and then talk about whichever random comic from their collection pops up. Campus Comics Cast. Find it now on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And now, back to Steeven Orr Else. While turtles don't have vocal cords, they've still found ways to communicate. Despite their lack of vocal cords, turtles can actually make sounds by moving air in and out of their lungs. Some of these sounds are unique to different turtle species and can be downright surprising. For instance, the red-footed tortoise, which is found in South America, makes a clucking noise that sounds a lot like a chicken. The male Travancore tortoises, native to Southeast Asia, emit a high-pitched whine that resembles an electric motor when they're looking for mates. Then there's the giant musk turtle from Central America, which has the strange habit of yelping like a dog when startled or under attack. One of the most surprising sounds, however, comes from the leatherback sea turtle. When female leatherbacks are nesting, they make a noise that can only be described as a loud, human-like belch. Not the most graceful sound for such a majestic creature, but there you have it. According to the book Turtles, An Extraordinary Natural History, it's one of the quirks that make turtles so unique. Beyond their strange sounds, turtles are some of the oldest animals on our planet. Some of the species we know today existed alongside the dinosaurs. For instance, a family of freshwater turtles native to Africa first appeared around 120 million years ago. Meanwhile, tortoises emerged around 65 million years ago, right after the dinosaurs went extinct. As for sea turtles, some of the oldest surviving species date back to about 55 million years, according to Turtles of the World. It's incredible to think that these animals have been around for so long, adapting and surviving when so many other species have come and gone. And it's not just their age that's impressive. Some turtle species are among the longest living animals on the planet. For example, certain tortoises can live for over 150 years, outlasting multiple human generations. In fact, one tortoise named Jonathan, believed to be about 190 years old, lives on the island of St. Helena and has seen more history than any of us ever will. He's outlasted 2 world wars, seen the invention of the car, and witnessed the rise of the internet. So there you have it, a few fun and surprising turtle facts. From their clever hunting techniques and unique sounds to their incredible history and longevity, turtles are truly fascinating creatures. And that's something I learned today. Holy crap, folks, you are not going to believe what happened to me last week.
See, my eyes had been giving me some trouble recently. I mean, even with my glasses on, everything was blurry at a distance. Colors were blending together, and there was just this general sense that the world had lost, I don't know, its crispness, I guess. Now, I've been wearing glasses for most of my life. I got them, I believe, the summer before my freshman year of high school, so like 39 years ago, somewhere in there. But in all that time, my prescription hasn't changed that much, meaning that over the years, while my eyesight has gotten worse, it's never been as bad as it had been over the last couple of weeks. And frankly, my eyesight was never really all that bad to begin with. So, as one would do in these kinds of situations, I made an appointment with my optometrist, my eye doctor. And I got the old eyes checked out. In the end, my eye issues didn't really turn out to be that big of a deal. And a few days later, I was back at the eye doctor to pick up my new glasses, which, according to the doctor, were just going to clear everything up, make everything, as she put it, sharp as a tack. And you know what? They really did at first. See, when I left the doctor that day, when I stepped out of the office and into the outside world, my new specs perched on my face, I froze there on the sidewalk at the edge of the parking lot and just, I guess goggled would be the best word to use here. I straight up goggled at everything. The sharp edges of the trees and the clarity of the street signs. It was like I'd been living my life up to that point in standard definition, and now my surroundings were in 1080p ultra high def. Like I said, in all the years I've been wearing glasses, my eyesight without the glasses, it's never really been all that bad. But that day, standing out in front of the eye doctors, for the first time in years, I felt like I was seeing the world the way it was meant to be seen. Unfortunately, that didn't last long. As the day went on, my depth perception started playing tricks on me. What looked like a step up was actually a step down, and what I thought was right in front of me turned out to be far away. By the end of the night, I was feeling a bit discombobulated, but I chalked it up to the adjustment period most of us tend to have with a new pair of glasses. The next morning, however, it was all a bunch of the same. But again, I figured that my eyes just needed a couple days to get used to the new prescription. So after breakfast, I decided to go for a walk, thinking that maybe some fresh air would help me adapt. And living in a small rural town, I didn't have to walk long before I was out in the wild, roaming the countryside. Eventually, as I strolled through some woods out behind the house, I came across a narrow dirt path that, after 2 decades of living here, I had honestly never noticed before. So, feeling adventurous, I followed the path as it wound its way through the trees and up into the hills. It was a pretty great morning, or at least it would have been had I not been struggling with the new glasses. Beyond the depth perception problems I'd been having the day before, being amongst the shade of the trees had made it nearly impossible to see much of anything, and I found myself stumbling on rocks and roots and fallen branches in the path. Seriously, I have no clue what I thought I was doing, but by that point, I felt it was too late to turn around. Besides, I still assumed that my eyes just needed time to adjust, and that being out there with so much to see, I thought that I was doing the right thing. Like the walk and all the stuff to look at. I just thought it was like a form of exercise for my eyes. Anyway, I had been on this winding path for about 15 minutes or so when it happened. I'd been walking along and trying to focus in on a colorful burst of wildflowers up ahead when my foot slipped. At first, I thought I just stumbled on a rock for the 1,000th time that morning, but suddenly the freaking ground gave way beneath me, and the next thing I knew, I was falling. Before my mind could even register what was happening, my right shoulder slams into the ground, and I scream out in pain as something in my arm just snaps. I roll onto my back, and as I lie there? I never get that right. Doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is that there I am on my back, pain lancing up my arm and into my spine. The ground beneath me is cold and damp, and it's then that I notice that the sky above looks off, like something has just come along and covered up the entire sky. Everything that is but a small circle of blue, just, a few dozen or so feet above me. Folks, I had fallen into a well. The shock of it all took a moment to register as I pulled myself to my feet, which hadn't been easy. My right arm didn't work anymore, and other than the sharp electric jolts of pain that would occasionally shoot through it, the entire appendage had gone numb. The air was cool and musty, and the faint light from above barely illuminated the dark, narrow space as I tried not to give myself over to the panic that danced along the edges of my sanity. I called out for help, but the only response was the distant echo of my own voice and one solitary squirrel that perched for a moment above me on the edge of the well, gazing curiously down at me. I checked myself over, and aside from some bruises, a scraped knee, and the inoperable right arm, I seemed to be in one piece. Still, the reality of my situation set in quickly. I was trapped at the bottom of a well in the middle of nowhere with no one around for miles. My phone was back at the house, still sitting there on the desk because I had forgotten to take it with me. Now I shouted for help again, louder this time, hoping that somebody might hear me. And I continued shouting until hours later, my voice grew hoarse, and I decided to give it a rest before it became as useless as my right arm. As night fell and the temperature dropped, the surrounding deep seeped into my clothes, and I began to shiver. The darkness by this point was complete, and I could hear the occasional scuttling of unseen creatures all around me. My stomach growled, and my throat felt raw from screaming as I huddled against the cold stones, struggling to stay awake. Eventually, however, I gave myself over to the exhaustion, and I slept. When dawn broke the next morning, the faint light brought no comfort. I tried shouting again, but my voice at this point was little more than a rasp. The hours stretched on, each one heavier than the last, as my sanity threatened to crumble away. By noon, the sun was directly overhead, its heat penetrating into the well. My head throbbed from thirst, and I was beginning to feel a bit lightheaded. Then, as I was about to give up all hope, I heard the faint sound of voices. At first, I just thought it was my imagination, but they grew louder, and more importantly, they grew closer. So I mustered what little strength I had left, and I croaked out a feeble call for help. Then another, and another one after that. Moments later, a shadow appeared above, followed by a face peering down at me. I found out later that a group of hikers had stumbled upon the well and were just moments away from peeing into it when they heard my weakened cries for help. So these hikers, they shouted down to me and they let me know that they had called 911 and that help was on the way. Hearing that, well, I'm not ashamed to admit that I began to cry. Eventually, the fire department arrived and I was hauled up out of the well and into the fresh air. As I lay on the ground, catching my breath, still blubbering like a great big old baby, a paramedic leaned over me and with a soothing voice, let me know that everything was going to be okay. That yes, my right shoulder was dislocated, but I was going to be okay. She told me that I was lucky, that hikers don't normally get up this far. And then she asked me the one question that I'd been asking myself over and over the entire time I'd been trapped. What happened? Well, I thought about that for a moment. I thought about the problems I'd been having with my eyes, thought about the trip to the eye doctor, the issues that I'd been having with my new glasses, and then I looked up at her and I croaked out my response. I guess I just couldn't see that well.
I want to thank you for listening to Steeven Orr Else. This episode was written, performed, produced, engineered, and edited by me, Steeven Orr. Questions and comments can be directed to stevenorelse@gmail.com, or you can find me online at all the regular places by searching for @Steeven Orr Else. If you enjoyed the show, you can help to boost our presence online by leaving a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. I also invite you to join our subscription program, Steeven Orr Else Beyond. And in return, you'll get episodes of Steeven Orr Else along with every other show under the Steeven Orr Else Media umbrella, early and ad-free. Check out the link in the show notes or just go to SteevenOrElse.com to join today. The Steeven Orr Else podcast is a presentation of Steeven Orr Else Media. For more nerdy content created by me, check out SoManyPodcasts.com. All links will be in the show notes.
I just don't think I can move through life knowing that a guy named Steeven did this to me.
How could you let this happen, Steeven?
Steeven! Thank God. I had a horrible feeling I was going to be the only one here.
Bigfoot stole my wife.
Bigfoot has a name.
I call him Steeven now.